Good morning, everyone. Good evening. It's actually afternoon where I am. Today, we're going to take a dive into the archives, an episode I recorded way back in 2020 during the pandemic. It's with a buddy of mine named Anton. He's a tattoo artist. He's actually tattooed me. And he's also a pro MMA fighter. He's one of the first jiu-jitsu coaches I ever had, and he's been a buddy of mine since. He can be a little mean, and he looks scary, but he's actually a bit of a sweetheart. Enjoy this episode of the Mike vs. Void podcast. We're recording.
There we go.
No wind up time. I was
just say,
sit down, go.
Let's go. Let's do it.
I don't want to miss any of the conversation.
Exactly.
Getting used to the whole quarantine thing was tricky. The first 2 weeks, I just that quote you see everywhere on Instagram right now? Like, if you haven't started a new hustle, learned a new skill, this, that, or the other, it was never your life. It was you. Yeah.
You didn't lack time. You lacked discipline.
Yeah.
For sure.
That got me right in the gut. And I was like, fuck. I just spent 2 weeks playing Minecraft and eating snack food. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I got so much shit I want to do. And then I just kind of just overdid it for 2 weeks and had to find that balance. And now
I think when we have this long a period of time where we're not obligated to go to our 9 to 5 and we have all this time, I think people should take the opportunity to just do fuck all. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Take a week of just eating junk food and just not exercising, whatever,
Yeah.
When else are you going to get to do that?
Yeah.
So not saying you should do that for the whole quarantine,
No.
but I think there should be a time to take advantage of the aspects of life that are not the same right now.
Yeah.
So chilling and just doing fuck all. But at the same time, like you said, getting some shit done.
Get
right?
to it after.
Different shit done. So.
And that's what it was for me. Kind of taking those first 2 weeks and then being like, okay, whoa. Just getting that balance between having fun and getting the things done that bring you that type 2 fun. Mm-hmm. Where it's something that adds to your life as opposed to just something that distracts you.
Right.
And for me, getting to that was took a bit of time.
Mm-hmm. I know for myself, I was struggling with, before quarantine, it was I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. And now you have an abundance of time. And it's almost like that works against you too. You know what I mean? Now you have all this time in the world that you tend to maybe waste more time now. At least for myself, I find myself doing a lot of, like I was saying, fuck all in times where I could be maximizing the opportunity to get some shit done, right? So it's funny. You think now I have all the time in the world and I'm still kind of wasting some time. So there's a give and a take. Now that we have more time, maybe make use of more time now, right?
Yeah. No, there's that concept of forced creation, which is when you put rigorous stipulations. You give very little room. You force creation because you don't have a lot of tools. There's not a lot you can do. So when you're under that 9 to 5, on top of a 9 to 5, on top of training, on top of, getting your dreams and careers going, that you have so little time, you're super efficient with it. Mm. And then when you get used to that's how you have to do things, when suddenly all the time opens up, it just, you gotta, it's an adjustment time. It's an adjustment time.
Definitely.
But getting into it was getting into the swing of things. I'm lucky because the thing I'm working on most for school is English, just because essay writing is going to be a huge part of when I do go back. And my grandmother, who is also my tutor. Not to dive into the deep stuff right away, but putting the ego aside and just doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel about it. And for me, restarting English was that. And for me, jiu-jitsu made it so much easier. I've always been the bigger, more aggressive guy in my friend groups. And then I stepped into a real jiu-jitsu gym and started with Muay Thai. And I was like, yo, fuck this. Jordan weighs 140, 145 and can destroy me with one kick. And then Izzy's choking me the fuck out. I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
So getting, that's one amazing part about martial arts is getting your ego aside and realizing there's levels to this. And that, expands to so much more.
Yeah, no, that's one of the major tools that jiu-jitsu provides anybody, whether they're doing it to compete or get in shape, or if they're doing it for self-defense, whatever the reason for doing jiu-jitsu. It's one thing that is universal is it always shows you that there's always a bigger fish.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody who knows way more than you or is better at the thing that you're good at. And when you can get your head around that, life is far less claustrophobic, if you know what I mean. You have so much more room to grow because you're used to not knowing anything.
Yeah. The way I like to look at it, and I got a roommate here with me who him and I are the same kind of thing. And I think jiu-jitsu artificially, like if you don't develop it in yourself, jiu-jitsu forces you. Before jiu-jitsu, being the smartest guy in the room is a goal. After jiu-jitsu, well, and obviously I have a love affair with jiu-jitsu, but after you start to really realize how the world is, being the dumbest guy in the room is what becomes important. You really want to be in a room where everyone's better than you because instead of attaching your ego to what you know, you attach that contentment to what you can learn.
Yeah, for sure. But then there's the other side of the coin as well, which I've noticed for myself, both being the student and also being the instructor.
Yeah.
Having both sides is super beneficial for your jiu-jitsu development or development in anything. If you think about learning an armbar from somebody who is far more proficient at that movement or that submission, you're going to learn from them. And then you're going to also, when teaching somebody an armbar, learn all the different angles of it to teach them the full spectrum of that move. You learn your armbar this way, but maybe somebody else learns it the other way. So when you're teaching it to somebody, you have to learn that aspect of the armbar. If you know what I'm trying to say, you learn the armbar from a different angle, and it's that's why it's beneficial to have people lesser than you and people better than you, so that you can instruct and drill on the people who can't put up much defense against what you're doing. You get to try new things.
You get to sharpen the sword, yeah.
And then you get to bring your A game and practice your defense against somebody who's far better than you, right? Yeah. So it's good if you can find a space where you're teaching somebody, you're beating somebody up, and you're learning and getting beat up. If you can get all of those in one school, in one class, in one program, you're going to learn so much.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, who broke down the jiu-jitsu belts, like just rough overview, this is kind of what they are, was Crew Chris, funnily enough. When I was training at 10 a.m. at Mass, shout out to Mass, there's going to be lots of those, get used to it.
Shout out to Mass, MA's the best.
Yeah. No, I was training with this guy named Eddie. And I come from a boxing style of striking, which Crew hated because I pulled all my punches. I moved my head off the center line, like out from over my hips, and it just wasn't good technique. And Crew explained to me, Eddie's a purple belt in Muay Thai. He's the equivalent. And what he explained to me is, and I don't know how true this is, but it gets back to that concept of seeing the armbar from the side of the person who's getting armbarred, is like, purple belts, and I guess this is more of a question, you've got way more experience than me, but purple belts know the game. They have a good understanding of all the aspects. Brown belts have really narrowed in on their game, and black belts have understand it in a way where they can really articulately teach it, where they know a technique so deeply that they can see how someone else would match it to their body. And that's kind of the concept I keep in my mind, is like those higher belts, although they're not always teaching me their armbar, they're teaching me one that they know works with big guys or short, stocky guys.
Yeah. A good instructor or a good sensei will be able to interpret jiu-jitsu in a way that would speak to your specific body type, build, athletic ability, structure. All of those are factored into your jiu-jitsu. There's going to be jiu-jitsu that works for me that isn't going to work for you, and vice versa, right? And it's the same with George or Scott. There's a wide variety of different body types and sizes and weight classes, and certain aspects of jiu-jitsu not necessarily won't work, but won't be maybe the best play for you. Yeah. And I think the more proficient you become with jiu-jitsu, as a competitor, you'll know what works for you, and then as an instructor, you'll know which will work for your students. So a good instructor is going to coach you and I differently, right?
Oh, big time.
Not even just like maybe what kind of athlete they are, how they learn, how they don't learn, or, if you need to really motivate me, if you need to give me space to do my thing.
Yeah.
A good instructor will recognize that, plus the type of jiu-jitsu that would work for you. Saying, hey, Mike, maybe you should bail on the berimbolo. You're over 150. It's kind of tough to, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%.
And for me, maybe it's like, maybe Anton, you shouldn't be trying to go for all the hip tosses against the big guys. Maybe you should try a different game, right? So
The last tournament I went to, I 100% fell to the level of my training, which was garbage. Because like in the gym, I was smashing the white belts in the night classes. Not like because I'd just been tournament prepping with you guys in the morning classes.
Right.
And then so I let that immediately get to my ego, go to my head. Oh, I'm not so worried about this. First day, first guy, like bow and arrow chokes me. Like works his game on me 100%. And the biggest problem is no cardio. We were standing. So the ref gave me my first warning and I was like, oh, I'm fucking this up. And then so I just, it was a sloppy takedown. And the second day, I go to Steve and I'm like, okay, I've been mentally preparing. I'm 100% all day, double legs, blast double legs. He's like, you are in garbage shape. You are not fucking doing that. Here's what you're going to do all day. Snap downs. You're heavy. Use your weight. Snap downs. And that's the game I went for. Mind you, you can't overnight get better. So it didn't go well either. But I fell in love with deep half that day. But yeah, no, everyone learns different. And that's why good variety in training partners, and jiu-jitsu is a team sport.
It's true. And it's time on the mat too, right? You need to explore all those good scenarios, bad scenarios, neutral scenarios. That's really important too. Like working from a neutral standpoint, implementing your game. If you start off with a good takedown, you kind of already have the momentum on your side, right? Yeah. Same with if you pull guard into like some sort of a spider guard or some sort of an open guard and you pull into that position, you're kind of ahead of the game. So starting in something in a neutral position, like, I don't know, like half guard, but I have an underhook or whatever the case. There's all these like micro positions you can drill. That's important. And then obviously having somebody on your back, seatbelt position in, okay, go. Starting there is just as important because you need to be comfortable in those uncomfortable positions. Like you said for yourself, going into that tournament not in the best shape, maybe with, a false sense of security from beating up students at night. All those
being a prick.
all those factors in, and then, going into that tournament not in the best shape, and then you start feeling tired, you start getting that anxiety, the techniques aren't flowing as well as you could because maybe you're not in the best shape as you could be. That's going to play a factor. So having those positions drilled out a million times, having those scenarios drilled out a million times in training is what's going to prepare you the most, right?
Yeah.
So,
and to bring it all back around, that definitely played a role in helping me get over that ego crush of seeing that quote 2 weeks into quarantine, and I've done fuck all, and I have all these like aspirations and things I need to do that I can be doing right now. So no, I find I definitely find that the discipline from one really spreads into the other and helps me find that balance or at least the how to build that momentum to go from I don't know, I'm not meant to do these things to no, I'm not doing as much as I could.
Right. Yeah, I know for myself, just because obviously there's less mat time and there's less training partner time. So when you factor that in, and we're in a time where there is no access to the gym, access to our training partners, we, at least for myself, I'm looking towards working on my conditioning, working on strength and conditioning, cardio, things that I can build on. Building blocks that I can attain since I can't go in the gym and drill with all my training partners. So, it's easy to let those, I can't do this because of that. You can let those kind of answers enter your head when you don't have access to the gym. But there's no excuse. You can always run. You can always sprint. You can do push-ups. You can do squats. You have access to a chin-up bar or at least a ledge somewhere. You can do some chin-ups, a tree, whatever. Yeah. Just looking to grow physically, at least if you can keep the car running well, then, so
when it comes to race time.
Yeah.
No, for sure. That's what got me out of it. I hit up a good friend of mine and she runs a horse farm. So she's up super fucking early. And I was like, here's the rule. Okay. If I don't send you a picture of me making coffee by 7:15, I owe you $5. And that's what I just said, you know what, do I wish I had that internal discipline to just get up every day? Yeah, but I got to do what works, and I love money, so I'm going to do this.
It's finding your motivation, like for me, my motivation of getting up in the morning is getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, to train, get my drilling in, just because later in the day, maybe the training partners aren't going to be as formidable for me. Later in the days, that's when more of the beginners are in class. So I try to get up early in the morning so I can train with Scott and the people who really give me a run for my money. So I that's my motivation, is when am I going to get the best training of the day? It's going to be, for me, it's going to be 5 a.m. So that's my motivation to get up, especially when you get ready for a competition. Like that's the biggest motivation for me is competition. I train harder. I'm more motivated. I'm more disciplined when I know I'm preparing for something. So, but now, since we're in quarantine, I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. So I'm struggling to find other motivations. So for me, it's just more the motivation of keeping a routine so that I'm not a complete wreck when this is all done.
Right. Oh, man. The one thing that I've been doing is a lot more pull-ups, push-ups, and just bodyweight stuff. And I didn't know how much of an impact that would have. And then I got my arms around Jordan, and he's like, what the fuck have you been doing? I was like, pull-ups are apparently the thing.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get a hold of a chin-up bar and maybe a kettlebell.
I have a homemade kettlebell, you'll see. It's a car battery with rope around it.
Isabel we have this giant glass water jug. It's for show. It's for decoration. It has a nice big rope on it, but it's about this big. So she filled it up. It's not a water jug. She turned it into a water jug and used it as she was doing single leg deadlifts and
sick.
She was doing curls with it and stuff. So you got to do what you got to do, right? I have a kettlebell, so I use a real kettlebell. But all you need is a chin-up bar, because you can do body weight squats, you can do jump lunges, you can do plyometrics. Same with push-ups. The only thing you might struggle with is if you don't have a chin-up bar, because you want that posterior chain work. Yeah. Pulling is so important for jiu-jitsu and for Muay Thai as well. You want to keep your clinch strong. So if you can get a pull-up bar, you're pretty much golden.
Yeah, you just need floor space and a pull-up bar, and you can hit almost every muscle group.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, pretty much everything there. I can't think of. No, I don't think there's anything. Yeah.
All the major points. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little bit harder to do just strict isolation kind of bodybuilding style training. But we're not really.
No, not that there's anything wrong with that. I've got a buddy who loves that. But for me, no, squat, deadlift, all the main movements.
When I'm out of competition, say I've just competed and I'm going into kind of a building block phase, outside of competition, not really preparing for anything, and it's just more maintenance, I might go into more of a hypertrophy phase when it comes to weightlifting. And then I'll do more of a bodybuilder style, not necessarily hours of tricep and bicep work and rear delt exercises, but I'll do higher repetitions, more for building muscle. You want to put on that base so that when you get into training camp, you're not going to just beat up your joints and be a bag of bones, essentially, right? You want to go in with a little bit of a muscular base, and then you burn it all off, obviously, in the training camp. But
yeah, no, for sure. I've always had that weird relationship between myself and physical exercise, where sometimes I just go too hard and then I break, and then I got to ease off to a point where I lose a bit of ground. It's only in the last couple 6 months where I found a pattern and a group of exercises, and learning where my point is, where if I go past this, the gains I'm going to get aren't going to be worth the recoup time.
There's no point in training really, really hard infrequently. It's better to train lightly, often, with the occasional really hard exercise during the week. So if you're training 5 to 6 times a week, 2 of those exercises should be really difficult, obviously. And then everything else should be more maintenance and skill work. It's you can't lift and hunt PRs all week. Your knees are gonna blow out. You're gonna have so many physical issues that are gonna outweigh the strength gains. Yeah. Especially when it comes to combat sports. People often get caught up in the conditioning of it. I want to improve my deadlift. Okay, you want to improve your deadlift. That's good. Obviously, you don't want to sit around at a weak ass deadlift. You're not gonna get the maximum benefits out of the deadlift, which is gonna translate into combat sports. But if your focus is just on lifting as much as you can and improving your deadlift, well, now you're a deadlifter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's there's that funny relationship, at least I know with myself, I have when it comes to strength and conditioning. Being competitive, you're going to want to chase those numbers and chase, I want to be able to run 20K at a certain time, but it's okay, well, you shouldn't be running 20K all the time, because
are you a runner or are you a fighter?
Exactly, right? So there's that, I get it. There's that fine balanced that every athlete has, and it's different for everybody. You know, maybe running is more beneficial for me physically than it is for you, or like say you have a pie of strength and conditioning, and how much do you allocate to what? Maybe for me, running should be a bigger piece of the pie than you, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe probably I should be
the other way around.
Well, I don't know, right? It depends on what kind of build you have athletically, like where you need to improve the most. Like I can run all day. Like I don't really get tired from running. Not trying to like say that I'm an amazing runner. I just I'm light. I'm under 140 pounds. Running is easy for me. So I need to work on building my strength on the, to bring that balance. Yeah. So it's different for everybody, but it's easy to get caught up in the strength and conditioning and then to ignore the skill work, or vice versa, to focus too much on skill work and you don't build your athleticism. So it's a balance. For sure.
So I totally forgot. We should probably introduce you.
Yeah, for sure.
So Anton?
I'm Anton. I train with Mike at Mass Academy Martial Arts. I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Renzo Gracie and Pat Cooligan out of OAMA, which is Ottawa Academy of Martial Arts. I've been training martial arts for about 10 years now. Obviously, I had a sporadic karate career at the age of 10, but
who doesn't?
Right. So aside from that, I started training Muay Thai when I was about 16 or 17 years old. I can't remember. But that was when I started training Muay Thai. I did Muay Thai semi-professionally for most of my martial arts career. The last few years, I've kind of shifted my focus more to jiu-jitsu. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu consistently. I mean, I would do the odd jiu-jitsu class here and there, but as in consistently every day, probably for the past, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years maybe. But obviously Muay Thai the whole time. But yeah, talking mostly about my fight career. That's kind of what has been the focus of my life for the past 10 years. But yeah, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu along the way, but I still love Muay Thai, and I'm doing lots of MMA, and I'm trying to think what else. As far as an intro,
what do you do for work, Anton?
So I've got a few things on the go. Obviously, I'm a martial arts instructor. I started a tattoo apprenticeship last year. My friend Nick Taylor at A Dying Wish Tattoo, he took me on as an apprentice last year. I've known him for 10 years. He trains at Mass, actually. So that's
that's where I met him the first time, and he just talked shit about you.
And of course he does. So he's a good friend of mine. I've been bugging him for years about learning how to tattoo, but I was training martial arts and like pursuing that as a career. So I think he recognized that I wasn't really about it. And then in the past year, my art really took a big leap in growth, and he saw potential, and he saw that I had the discipline to pursue it, and he took me on. So I started tattooing, I would say, midway through last year. So the first 6 months of my apprenticeship was mostly just drawing and watching him. And then last 6 months up until now, I've been tattooing, well, aside from quarantine.
Yeah.
But so that's what I do. So I'm a tattoo artist and a martial artist and instructor.
A lot of art.
And then I also have a side hustle at a coffee shop. Mike is a regular there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just to make ends meet until the tattooing and martial arts make a little more income for me. But
yeah, I'd rather be making coffee than selling cell phones. Let me tell you that.
I don't know. I think I'd rather be selling cell phones than making coffee. But
yeah, that's the grass is always greener.
Right.
No, dude. Yeah, that brings up a lot of questions. We've had some little like aftermath chats and stuff about that concept of the concept of warrior in a garden. And obviously I want to touch on that because that's some really heavy stuff, especially from someone who your art is very important in the way that it's a permanent mark on someone's body. You know what I mean? There's a certain, it's like, funnily enough, not that they're the same because hair grows back, but I could never be a hairstylist because you fuck someone's hair up, they're going to be so pissed. Tattoo is like 10 times that.
Yeah.
So there's like, three kind of topics I would love to touch on. One, what draws you to things of such level of intensity? Your hobbies are kicking people till they're unconscious or choking people till they're unconscious. And not just anyone, the best people you can get in the ring with. And then second to that, it's doing the most permanent form of art. And not only, you don't get to just do what you're good at. You have to bring someone's idea who's not artistic, as someone who loves tattoos, but has no artistic ability whatsoever. There's a lot of intensity involved in all aspects of your life, bringing someone's vision to fruition and then permanently, errorlessly putting it on their body. Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
Definitely not downplaying that. It's definitely 100% what it is.
Yeah, man. The first guest I ever had on the podcast, shout out to G, was a tattoo artist, but a really tenured. He learned to tattoo in California.
Wow.
I would love to get the two of you on. That'd be sick one time.
I'd love to pick his brain too. That'd be
awesome. No, 100%. That will happen. Because he's down to record more.
After I'd like his info. I'm always.
Oh no. I'll hook you up for sure.
I'm always scoping out everybody's art. I'm just constant. That's all I do. I just look at martial arts, training videos, fights, or tattoos and tattoo artists' work. That's all that's on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And then the occasional my girlfriend doing a yoga pose or some shit.
Yeah. No. So what do you? At what point did you realize that, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but, on a scale of 1 to 10, 5 being a normal day, most of your stuff lives in like an 8 or a 9. Like,
as far as how busy I am or how intense.
Not busy, the intense, like the gravity of what you do.
Yeah, I mean.
When did you realize that's what you wanted?
Between a 1 and a 10. I'm trying to think what my 10 is. To be honest,
bro, like that's what I mean is you've made your 9, like most people's 10 is
I'll
your
give
7.
I'll give you a breakdown of my average day. So I get up at 4:45ish, between 4:45 and 5 o'clock, depending on how much of a rush I want to be in before the gym. Get to the gym for 5:30, train till 7. From 7 I go to the coffee shop and I work there till 1. Then usually I get my strength and conditioning in right after the coffee shop. So I'll do either lift weights or I'll go for sprints. Maybe I'll get a jog in. I usually will do some form of strength and conditioning every day just to keep up with it, depending on what the jiu-jitsu training was. If it's hard sparring, maybe not, but usually I'll do something between 1 and 3 o'clock. And then from between 2 or 3 onward till 7, I'm tattooing. If it's a big piece, then I'll be tattooing later. But usually if I don't have a big tattoo, I'll finish around 7. And then from 7 o'clock, I go to mass again, where I'll get my second session in, or depending on how late the tattoos went, I'll go and do some more conditioning, whatever. I kind of organize my day around the tattoo shop and the coffee shop, because those are the kind of anchored times of my day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so pretty much that's my day. So from 5 till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, my day is pretty much spoken for, with usually between 2 to 3 training sessions. So that's my day. So you can rate that. That's an average day. I don't know what that, for some people that might be a 4.
That might be a 4.
But then for other people that might be like a 20. So
no, that's totally true. My point is, you roll around with dudes like Scott, who, God forbid, Dan, just playful assassins. Who just love to put people through misery. And then you go and you deal with people in the morning before coffee, which is brave. It's a brave thing you do. And then from there, you put in some physical training, and then you permanently etch human skin. Not only are your days full and intense, fuck ups are, like, you fuck up in the gym. Could you get injured? Yeah. Maybe not as much as like sparring in Muay Thai, dropping your hand and someone throws in a kick too hard.
Been there.
Fucking Jordan. He's like, hold pads for me. And then he's like, yo, watch this, and just blasts me with a knee. I'm like, I don't have a belly pad on. No. So the intensity, when in your life did you realize that was it a passion? I guess I'm trying to struggle to form this question. Was it passion?
How these two things in my life connect to each other? And
well, no, not so much how they connect, but the level of performance you expect from yourself on a daily basis, both artistically, quiet, calm, super focused discipline, and then physically. When did you first realize that capability was, or was it just this is always how Anton's been?
No, definitely not. I've definitely not always been this way. Growing up, I was very much a bookworm. I was a huge comic book nerd. Still am. Still into books and into the nerdy aspects of life. I love my Star Wars. I love my my superhero movies. So I was kind of a a loner in that sense. I had a very small group of friends growing up, and they were all, again, bookworms, comic book nerds. We were the rejects.
Same.
Rejects.
Yeah, I was that guy.
Yeah. So, growing up, I didn't really pursue sports that much. I was, again, very much in my own head, and I was more always interested in like developing my brain, learning new things on like an intellectual level, I guess. And then as I got older, you start getting picked on. I by no means grew up in a rough neighborhood or anything, but I have roughneck friends, and I've grown up in Cambridge my whole life. And my parents did a very good job of like my mom and my stepdad did a very good job of keeping me like out of bad neighborhoods. It was like we always lived in nicer neighborhoods just to keep me out of trouble. But growing up in Cambridge, growing up with certain groups of people, it's sometimes it's hard to survive as a bookworm, right?
Yeah, you have to adapt.
Yeah, so catching a few lickings here and there, getting beat up a bit, you start wanting to defend yourself, and that's when I started turning towards martial arts. And it was martial arts that kind of ignited that passion to be disciplined and to seek a better version of myself, and on a physical level, not just trying to learn from a book or read all the time. So yeah, growing up, I always had a temper growing up, but I didn't really know. Yeah, so I never really had an outlet for it.
Yeah,
and I like to read, so I didn't really have that physical exertion.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was by no means like a super hot-headed kid or anything, but I had a temper, and I didn't really know where to put that energy. And then as I got older, you get a little more frustrated. You start getting into fights. I by no means take shit from anybody, but I'm also 5'0", so that didn't always work out for me. So I've taken a few whoopings over the years, and then I finally decided I wanted to learn how to fight. And then I started training. I found the Mass Academy of Martial Arts, and I always drew. I always loved drawing, and I guess just being tied into the whole warrior culture of fighting, you come into contact with tattoos, and I just became obsessed with tattoos and the level of permanence and the everything that they represent culturally for humans over the years.
Oh,
and
big time. That's
what I'm obsessed with. I mean, I've always loved art, but the aspect of tattooing, that art form of tattooing, is something that I find is very much tied into warrior culture. And when you start training, you live that lifestyle, right? So for me, they kind of went hand in hand, and having the discipline to grow as a person allowed me to translate that into my art, because I always drew, but I never really pursued developing it and having the discipline to develop it, because art is very much that. It's creative, but you have to have the discipline to grow and to find your style. So martial arts gave me that. So I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, you 100% are. I'm getting out of you what I want.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I think it's the pursuit of expressing yourself and developing as a person. I think that's, for me, what I'm obsessed with. I'm in the constant pursuit of unattainable perfection.
Yeah.
And I find that creatively, physically, mentally, I think that's the thing that connects everything in my life, at least. That's my pursuit.
Yeah, I was Travis Barker actually talked about that on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he talks about it a lot. That like the difference between a studio pro level drummer is how often they practice. You know what I mean? And all I see on your Instagram is tons and tons of practice. So
yeah, I always told myself, just because I don't come from an athletic background before martial arts, of course. Yeah. I've been doing martial arts for 10 years, so I think I'm an athlete. I can say I'm an athlete now.
You can say you're an athlete.
But
I tell people I'm an athlete. You can tell people you're an athlete.
But prior to pursuing martial arts, I wasn't an athlete. So getting into martial arts and wanting to learn how to fight, and then eventually wanting to compete, I think I always just had this dialogue in my head saying, like, you're not the most gifted athlete. You're not the best physically gifted person, but you can be the hardest working person in the room. That you can control. And for some reason, that kind of always, I always understood that. Some people maybe not get that. Some people, maybe people who are more athletically gifted or played sports their whole life and understand competition, or just naturally did it growing up as a little kid. It's easier for them to not have that dialogue in their head, maybe. But for me, I always had to have that dialogue in my head, because I was constantly reminded about how out of shape I was, how unathletic I was. So for me, it's like, if I don't have control over that, I can at least outwork everybody in the room. And that was like the first habit I developed when I started. And that's the one thing that's carried on. I think I've developed the most out of anything in my life is working hard.
Yeah.
Working hard physically, athletically, mentally, pushing yourself mentally. That's so important. And yeah, that's
one of my favorite quotes is, once you realize that life is going to fuck you up, you can start preparing for it.
Yeah,
it's David Goggins. Dude's a monster.
I know David Goggins is great. I've always wanted to read his book. I just haven't gotten around to it.
If you want a little recommendation, me and George both feel the same way about it. Do his audiobook, because it's not just the reading of his book. He sits down with his ghostwriter, and his ghostwriter basically interviews him, and it's like a podcast book, and there's like activities built in. It's really cool.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's closer to a podcast than an audio. No, it's an audiobook, but I don't know. It's a weird fusion, and it's a cool medium just to think about.
It'd be good. It'd be nice that his voice is in it, because I know what he sounds like.
Oh, so fuck, he swears so much. I love it.
It'd be hard to listen to an audiobook of David Goggins and David Goggins not be in it. Some other guy saying all the shit that David Goggins says. It's just like, it wouldn't make sense. So it's a good thing they brought him in to do. So I'll check that out for sure. But he's so inspirational. He's such a motivation. His first podcast with Joe Rogan, I think he's done 2 now.
Yeah.
The first one,
from what I can remember, yeah.
I think so. Well, the first one that I heard, it was just so inspiring. I had to like pause it, rewind it, play back some. Yeah.
Yeah, man. All those all the people from the SF, like Special Forces community, all jumping into the podcast game. My favorite podcast actually is by a guy named Andy Stumpf. He's like super badass Mr. Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
And his he does a really cool podcast. It's just kind of like whatever. He'll get guests sometimes. He'll just talk about things, but he experienced the whole SEAL life. Again, to go all the way back to that concept about, getting to be the instructor and the student, because he taught, like, he trained SEALs and did the guys standing over them on the beach screaming at them, but he was also at one point the guy on the beach being screamed at.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he talks about goal setting and how to get through, adverse times, it's very little bullshit from these guys, and I like that. I like that it's just a lack of what doesn't work is so filtered out now that this is effective. This worked for me. It can probably work for you. Try it.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I find those guys inspiring. I was more of a Jocko Willink guy. Because I read his books for leadership, because I used to do a job and I made decent money selling phones. I worked for a bigger company, made a lot more money than I make now, but I was just a motherfucker to work with. Like, I was a nightmare. I'm opinionated. I'm not hot-headed, but I will not back down. If my boss says something I don't like, I'll tell him. So my DM and me never got along. I don't love his style of leadership, but I also was a nightmare person to lead. And then got out of that job, spent a month in Thailand, kind of getting perspective on who I actually was as a person.
I didn't know you went to Thailand.
Yeah, man. I spent a month. So I get this great job. I get fired. I get a 6 severance package because it's without cause. I'm not a shitty employee, but I'm a shitty follower. Was. And I get this awesome severance package. And I sit down, funnily enough, with my shrink, and he's like, why don't you go to fucking Thailand? You have zero responsibility.
He suggested Thailand.
Oh, 100%. Him, my mom and sister had been there.
Yeah.
I loved Muay Thai before I ever went to Thailand. And then he was like, why don't you go to Thailand? You're like thick and tall there, not here. No one's going to fuck with you. You're going to be safe. You might as well just go. Just buy a plane ticket. So the next day, hopped on Flight Center, bought a ticket. No passport, no birth certificate. I had to replace all of it in like 6 days. I bought the ticket for 6 days. I made it all work, hopped on the plane. My dad dropped me off.
That's awesome.
And yeah, man, I just walked. I remember life changed for me when I landed in Hong Kong and I got off this plane from Canada. And I'm walking out of the plane and there's those tunnels and there was a corner and I had zero idea what was around that corner. And nothing in my life could possibly prepare me for that moment because I just never been in that situation. I'd never traveled alone. I've never been out of this hemisphere, you know? And then I just walked around the corner. I was like, well, we'll have to figure this out. Luckily, it was like 5 a.m. in the morning there. So no one was awake. And it was just this giant empty Hong Kong airport. And then it was just like, well, it's going to be what it's going to be. And then it was moments like that after increasingly more adverse moments of like the first hotel I booked, I probably should have looked at reviews because it was a brothel for Thai truckers. So I was the only white guy there. And it was a nightmare. Someone knocked on my door every 30 minutes asking if I needed company. And I was like, I've just been on a 24-hour flight. I really just want to go to bed, please. I appreciate lovely lady, but I need sleep right now.
Fair.
So it was, it was just instant dive off the deep end.
Especially going from North American Western culture and then traveling for the first time on your own and then going to such a polar opposite to what we're used to. But I love Thailand. I went there in 2012 or 13. I was there for almost 3 months actually. And I stayed at the Khao Samrit camp. So that's our like affiliate gym with Mass. So Chris knows everybody at Khao Samrit and he's worked with them over the years. And they've been ranked the #1 gym in Thailand many times. They've made so many champions, you know. Anuwat Khao Samrit, he had a seminar at Mass recently. He is they call him the Iron Hands of Siam. He was like one of the best pound for pound Muay Thai fighters in Thailand of his era, which is about 10 years ago or so. They would bet on Anuwat not if he would win or not, based on what round he would knock his opponents out in. Because usually if he did lose, it'd be on points, but the odds were that Anuwat was going to knock you out with his hands. So bettors wouldn't bet on whether he'd win or not. It would be whether it was the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round when the KO is coming. So that's who made Khao Samrit. You know, that's kind of he was who put Khao Samrit kind of on the map. And since then they've bred a bunch of amazing champions. You know, Singmany Khao Samrits from Khao Samrit, Naka Khao Samrit. There's the Khao Clyde. There's so many great champions that I got to train alongside, which was awesome. But so when I started training at Mass, we always heard about Khao Samrit. We always told that's the place. And then finally it came my time to go, and Chris gave me the okay, and I went and trained there, and it was amazing. Training in Thailand, living in Thailand, I have nothing but good things to say about that place and the people for sure.
Oh, same. It's like if you strip off all the bullshit of Western ego, but it's like it was like I didn't really have many expectations going into it, but the food, the people, it's constantly beautiful. There's a million things to do. Everyone's nice. It's tricky but nice. Just stay away from Koh San Road. I hated that place. I was there for like 45 minutes. I was like, fuck this. This is not why
Khao San Road.
Oh.
It's like a mini Vegas strip, a mini Asian Vegas strip. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Khao San Road is fun. Nana Plaza is fun too. There's a bunch of crazy spots, but you can't go there during the week. That aspect of Thailand will consume you. You know, there's so many Western fighters that I've seen while I was in Thailand coming and going, and they get just sucked into that lifestyle because it's easy to just go there and just party the whole time you're there. It's so easy. You can party. You can go to a club that only opens at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, it's nuts. But just to speak to the people, they're some of the friendliest, most helpful, kind people I've ever met in my life. It's amazing.
Yeah,
the land of smiles, right?
Land of Thousand Smiles. Yeah. One of my I guess it's not my favorite book because it's a spectacular piece of literature, but it's called The Wind-Up Girl, and it's about the book takes place in Thailand, and the writer is a Western guy who got really, really sick and ended up getting quarantined in Thailand, in Bangkok, in this unair-conditioned cement box of an apartment place for 2 weeks, and that's when he wrote the book. So the book's all about plagues and shit, obviously. Mm-hmm. It takes place in Thailand. But they just... I read that book when I landed in Thailand, I read like I listened to 3 audiobooks the entire time because I did a lot of traveling. I didn't stay anywhere for longer than like 7 days. Although I got hung up in oh come on, how am I not remembering this? Chiang Mai. I spent like a week and a half in Chiang Mai because once I got there, I was like, okay, sick. I had a screw up on my hotel room, so instead of getting like an unair conditioned small room, I got an air conditioned big room because they double booked and they're like, you can have this one for the same price. I was like, cool, I'm gonna add a week to this stay already, and it had a pool and everything.
Nice.
So I just went and rented a scooter and I just whipped around Chiang Mai on my own.
I've always wanted to go to Chiang Mai. It's supposed to be beautiful there. It's a little bit out of the city, so it's not as there's not as many distractions, I'd say.
Well, there's the old city and the new city.
Okay.
Like there's Chiang Mai proper, which is the new city, and it's a full city. I went and saw a movie there. I think which movie did I see? I met a Thai girl, and it was like we went on a date to go see a movie. And why did I do one? No one can see, but I was like, nope, there's.
What she meant.
And we went and saw a super nerdy comic book movie, or was it Star Wars? I think it was Star Wars. I have a movie stub somewhere, but so she spoke great English, taught herself from Netflix. Yeah. Yeah, her name is Lena. We hung out a ton, actually. She like showed me around and took me to like all the good food stalls and stuff. And yeah, she was super duper helpful. And just an awesome human being. She like at one point convinced me she was a lady boy to judge how judgmental I was. And I was like, whatever, you seem awesome to hang out with, you know. And then she's like, no, I'm just kidding. And then she fucked with me a lot, but she also like taught me about the Thai culture. But she shows up. It was the most gentle way to meet a Thai person because she pulled a full Canadian. She showed up to our first date, stoned off her ass, ready to watch a movie. I was like, yeah, I can hang with this. I get this. This makes sense to me. But no, she kind of like showed me around the city, and then I had kind of my sea legs at that point, and I was just comfortable. I went to the same food stalls and found out where to get the good food. And
yeah, you find your rhythm. You know?
Yeah.
You find your little routine.
Yeah.
Especially when you're there for a decent amount of time. You know, if it's just a week, you're just sightseeing. But
Yeah.
if you're staying there for a good amount of time, you find your little routine, and it's good to always have somebody to help out. When I went to Thailand, so I traveled alone as well. I was supposed to go with 3 other teammates, but then they booked them a different time, so they came for like the last week that I was there. So for the first 2.5 months, I was by myself, and it was sick. And I mean, it's a Thai camp, so there are people from all over the world coming and training. So there were a few times where some Australians were there, which is really nice, someone to speak English with.
Yeah.
But for a large majority of the time, it was just me and the Thais. But again, being so friendly, even though the capacity of their English was, you, me, go 7-Eleven. It's like, okay.
Oh, 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven, right? I call it the Church of the Phalangs.
Oh.
And people who don't know, Phalang is foreigner in Thai. You get called a Phalang all day. But yeah, they would always take me out, show me the spots, show me the good food spots, the spas that are more reputable, things like that. So
yeah,
they help you out a lot, which is awesome. But yeah, no, it's you find your routine, you find the places you go to, you find the places you will never go to again.
Oh yeah,
I've had a few food spots. Actually funny, there's right outside of the camp, there's this little, and when I say house, it's more like a roof.
Yeah,
pretty much these people lived under a roof.
Yeah,
there's a lot of houses like that in Thailand where they don't have doors, they don't have windows because it's hot all year round.
Yeah, and you're not keeping bugs out. You don't have air conditioning.
Right, and they're obviously they live in poverty.
Yeah,
unfortunately, there's not really much of a middle class in Thailand, and you'll see people just to make ends meet. They'll grow vegetables in the back. They'll also repair your car. Then they'll sell you soup, and they wear many hats to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And there was this one. I'm gonna say restaurant. It's a motorcycle repair shop, but they also made soup. Mm-hmm. And every time walking to the camp and back from 7-Eleven, they'd always say, "Oh, you come have soup, have some soup." I'm like, "Okay, one day I will." And then one day I was like, "All right, I'll try your soup." Right?
Yeah.
It tasted great, but man, I had food poisoning. I was out of commission for like a good 3 to 5 days. Probably lost like 10 pounds just from puking. But you learn. So it's funny. I made a post. I was like, never buy soup from a soup shop that also specializes in motorcycle repair.
Yeah.
And then my boxing coach, Elroy, was like, what do you mean? That's the best spot. What are you talking about? That was the best soup spot. So I just had bad luck. But for the most part, I didn't really have any negative food experiences. Most of the places I ate, I didn't really get sick. You know, people always say, worry about the street meat, worry about this, worry about that. But I think if you eat where other Thai people eat, then you should be okay, you know?
I got sick once the entire time. I had like a bad moment. Nope. Okay. 2 times. One time I just gotten to Chiang Mai and they drop you off in kind of, I think it's just northwest of Chiang Mai proper, their big bus terminal. It's a train bus terminal. And then you hop on a bus or you get in like one of the red taxis, whatever. So I hopped in one of the red taxis. And I take it and they drop me off in the completely wrong spot because taxis over there are not like taxis here. They do not know where everything is because there's just too much shit to know. They have their little area. So they drop me off and I'm walking down the street and then I'm like, uh-oh, not good. I need to get, and I've got MapQuest open or like Google Maps open and I'm MapQuest. What the fuck? I got Google Maps open and I'm finding my way to my hotel. And I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. I need to stop now. So me, sweaty, huge backpack on the back, backpack on the front, just bearded and not well kempt, just charge into a law office because they had English on their sign. I just run into a law office screaming, Hong Nam, Hong Nam. Which is just washroom. It's just toilet. I'm not even saying where is the toilet.
Yeah.
I'm just running and screaming toilet, 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 toilet. And this poor lady explodes from her desk and throws shit in the air. She's like, there, back there, and just points me to the washroom.
Shitting on her floor.
Yeah. She's like, you're not. Yeah, it's like this is the office's washroom. You can't just walk in and use it. We're not a restaurant. But she. You know, you don't need the language. We had the communication. She understands the urgency. Yeah. It's happening in this premise. You pick the room.
Yeah.
So it was, but she was sweet after. She was laughing and laughing and laughing.
Nice.
So I was like, I'm sorry. But no, yeah. And the other time was in a Thai train station in Bangkok. And we're not going to get into that because it's a messy one. We'll stay civilized-ish for this podcast. But let's just say sometimes they don't have a toilet. It's just a hole.
Yep.
What's more confusing is when it's a toilet with no seat, no toilet paper, and a hose.
Yeah, the bidets, they're big on that.
I was like, I don't even know what the fuck to do here.
Just rinse that asshole.
Yeah, I went through an entire package of wet wipes, a fresh one, ripped it open. I was just, it was a mess. I ended up getting naked. I'm just standing in this stall with all these Thai travelers showering around me, just hovering over this toilet like some disgusting caveman.
For most of my trip, I would use the bidet, but then near the end, I was like starting to get homesick and missing Western life. So I was like, I'm buying toilet paper. So I bought like a roll of toilet paper, and it was just funny. I remember like the Australians would come in our room like, hey man, do you have any toilet paper? And they were like, yeah, sure. And I had like I was like the toilet paper plug. But yeah, I mean, it's not really that expensive, but the camp, they like frown upon using toilet paper. So they're like, please try not to. You can just use the bidet. But I'm sorry, I need to wipe my ass.
Yeah,
okay?
like something needs to get done about this.
Yeah.
Like I'm sweaty, I'm wet. I want one part of my body to be dry, and I want it to be my asshole. I don't want to spray myself anymore. I'm tired of this.
And it's different if it was like the ones where you like the wealthier ones where you sit and you press a button and it rinses your asshole for you.
Yeah.
The ones at the camp, it is a hose. You have to like
it's a sit fucking up, sink sprayer,
and you just hose your butt, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't want to miss any spots, right? So I usually...
It's just like I'm spraying it all over the place. How do I aim this? What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time sitting on a toilet looking at a hose and just being like, oh, fuck, I don't want to fucking do this.
Yeah.
And then like a little lizard would crawl up the wall. I was like, how the fuck did I get here?
Lizard or tarantula.
Oh my God.
I had a few tarantulas at the camp. I had a scorpion. I woke up at like, I want to say probably 3 a.m. to go pee. And I turn on the light, and just as I turn on the light, I see a scorpion crawling down into my clean laundry.
Fuck that.
I know. I was like, holy crap. I caught it with a cup and then threw it outside. But yeah, just like little culture shocks like that. Or in training, we always get up at like 6 in the morning or so and go for we'll either for either a 5 or a 10K, depending on what kind of energy we got going on. And I remember we were leaving the complex to get into the main roads, and it looked like there was like a log stretched out across the street. And I'm like, okay, so we're running, we're jumping, and then as we got closer, I realized there was a python just stretched out across the road, just sunbathing. Right? It was so long, it was across the street, and its head was in the bushes. So, and I didn't realize how I'm jumping over, and I stopped and look back. I'm like, holy fuck, that's a python. Are you serious?
It's not a tree. This is an animal.
I know, right? It's just crazy. And the Thais don't. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, whatever, no big deal.
Don't let it just run away. You're faster.
Yeah, it's just nuts. There's so many little culture shocks like that. But.
Yeah. No, I've always fantasized about traveling to places. I want to go to Havasupai Reserve in Arizona.
Okay.
And Thailand was one of them too. Recently, like I'm working on this piece about comparing why I picked going to Thailand over Havasupai when given the option to do some traveling and money and lack of responsibility. And it kind of got me thinking about what did Thailand do for me? What do I think it could do for other travelers? And one thing that's really good about Thailand is that you forget who you think you are. You know what I mean? When you can't communicate the way you're used to, when you can't emote and behave the way you're used to, because it's just not going to be effective. It peels that mask off so quick. You really forget about just who you think you are, and you have to just be, as opposed to thinking, like double thinking everything you say. Yeah. Trying to manipulate the world around you.
No, definitely. That's a good point. You know, when you're out of your element, and culturally, physically, like temperature wise, everything is different about your surroundings. You know, the language, the people look different. You know, like what's culturally appropriate, certain things you can and can't do. You know, that definitely takes you out of your element. It's good to be taken out of your element just to, you know, function as a human without these like preconceptions of how you're supposed to act or how you're supposed to appear. Yeah. You know, sometimes it's good to shake that up for sure. And traveling definitely does that, especially to somewhere like Thailand, which is so culturally different than where we're from. So.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think it's really important. You know, we so quickly forget how lucky we are, and we really can't see the forest through the trees. You know,
I know. Going for like jogs in the morning at the camp, you really get to see like the people. Like, it's cool. It's, you know, you jog through like countryside, you jog through a bit of the city, kind of back through the complexes, and you get to see all different lives of people, especially in Thailand where there's no real middle class. You'll have somebody who lives in a mansion with Ferraris outside next door to somebody who has a tree growing through their house with no windows, no doors, and they have a campfire out front, and that's how they're cooking their food. You know, I remember I was jogging one morning. I saw these people regularly, but the first time I saw them jogging, and they lived under a bridge, and they had this little dug-in kind of campsite going, and they lived in a tent. All their belongings were out under this bridge. You know, everything from clothes to drying racks, whatever. That's just where they lived. And it was a husband and a wife, and I think they like 2 or 3 kids, just doing their thing, and they clearly lived there. And I just remember running by them, and they're like waving and smiling, and they looked like they're the happiest people. And I'm sure obviously they have their struggles, you know, living outside and all, but at the same time, these people had next to nothing, and they still managed to be happy and friendly, and the kids are playing, and everybody's together, and it puts it into perspective, you know, like the little things that we consider inconvenient for us, and, you know, things that throw us off our game. Meanwhile, there's, you know,
people making the best of far
more severe situations.
Big time.
Yeah, and it's good to go there and to see people who have nothing and are still happy. You know, there's something there. There's something about that. Obviously, air conditioning and indoor plumbing is amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't give it up.
I wouldn't give that up either.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does put into perspective that these people can still manage to find happiness and live a good life with next to nothing. So.
Yeah, my morning mantra is I took a piss and or a shit in clean drinking water today. I think I'm doing okay. You know?
Yeah, no doubt. That's a good
Right?
point,
Yeah, that's what I just tell myself, because someone will be like, I'll be at work. And now that I've turned my shit around with leadership, being part of the team is one of the most important things to me. So, like, I'll go above and beyond for my boss. I also know my boss. My boss is a buddy of mine. We've been friends for like 6 years, 5 years. He's the only reason I'm still working in that goddamn industry. But he, like, I'll do something, and a friend of mine or a girl I'm talking to will be like, well, why would you do that? Like, it's not fair of your boss to ask that of you. And I was like, I do almost no work. I need to learn almost nothing new every day, and I get good commission. And I also took a shit and clean drinking water today. So really, I'm not going to start complaining right now. My life is pretty fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of helps put stuff in perspective.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And I think, yeah, that's one thing we don't do enough as Western culture. There isn't much from our religions to our modern, you know, a Neil Gaiman style modern deities, that really helps us get perspective on, you know, like I had a moment today where I was rushing around. I slept in a bit too much because I stayed up too late playing video games because I'm not perfect. And I was like, oh, I want to get this shit together and I want to get it all perfect. And then I just paused for a second and I was like, and I thought about what my day is actually going to look like once it gets started. And I was like, fuck, man, this is like, I am so lucky. My life is so awesome. You know, I get to do a podcast and then, you know, hang out. We'll make sure I release this after the pandemic. No one will understand. No, like, I think that's important. Sam Harris talks about it a lot. I haven't read a ton of his books, but I bumped into a little bit of his material reading stuff.
I've never read his material, but I've heard him on the Joe Rogan, and I've heard him have his little debates here and there online.
Yeah.
He's so smart.
Him and Peterson debating truth. And although that was like, for some people, but I love those mind fucks. I feel like you and me have that in common. It's like, go deep. Go get, like, lose 90% of the crowd. I'm with you. Let's see where this goes.
For sure.
Yeah. No, and just those concepts of you reach the peak of a mountain and you're there. And then you come down or you look for your next goal. If you spend your entire life living for the peak, you've greatly reduced the amount of happy moments.
Definitely the journey.
Yeah.
Not to sound
no, that's 100%
cliche,
exactly what I was going to say.
It's
It's
the journey for sure.
You know what I mean?
Because there'll always be another mountain peak.
Yeah.
There'll always be a new thing to attain. There'll be a new goal to accomplish. So if you make it about that thing that you accomplish, that, you know, you're going to live a happier life, enjoying the process, enjoying the growth, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about art or jiu-jitsu, like
Yeah.
pretty much physical and creative expression, is that there's never a finish line. You know, you can never learn all the jiu-jitsu. You can never reach the pinnacle of artistic ability. There's always room for growth. So if you get caught up in finishing, at least for myself, finishing a piece that I had been thinking about or been working at, or accomplishing, you know, winning a fight or winning a tournament, once you do that, it's short-lived. I know that the minute I get off the podium, after, you know, hanging out with everybody, eating dinner after the fight, talking shit, talking about how awesome we are, that we just won and stuff, shortly after the car ride home, you're already thinking about the next goal, or like that win doesn't feel as like fresh, at least for myself. I mean, some people may be able to like bask in victory for days, but for me, it's like, it's a couple of days, or a couple of hours. And then I already want to get back to the gym. I want to do the next tattoo. I want to do the next thing.
Yeah.
Because it's about, the trick is learning to become obsessed with the growth rather than, again, the mountain peaks.
Yeah, because you're going to, like, if you look at it as a graph, you spend far more time on that ramp up. You know what I mean?
I know for myself, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I know a great analogy for that is like chasing belts in jiu-jitsu. You know, I
got caught up in that 100%.
Yeah, you can. It's the worst. That's like the worst thing you can do. It's good to use the belts as recognition for goals accomplished, to show how far you've come, because you need to give yourself that props. You need to, how do I put this? You need to pat yourself on the back, as well as be hard on yourself. You need to not be obsessed and not focus solely on accomplishing the goals. You know, it is about the journey, But at the same time, you need to recognize what you've accomplished. You need to recognize how good you are doing and recognizing how far you have come. Because if you're constantly just hating on yourself, that's nowhere to live either. And how that kind of the belts show that is, you work so hard to get your blue belt or your purple belt, and then the minute you get your blue belt or your purple belt, and you're still getting tapped out by the same people.
Yeah.
You don't get the belt doesn't come with any new skills. It doesn't come with some new move. At the end of the day, I got my purple belt, and the next day Scott still tapped me out.
Yeah.
Nothing changed. So recognizing that, accomplishing those wins, getting those belts, getting those medals, those are great to show how far you've come, but you need to let that go immediately after you've gotten them and move on to the next task. Appreciate them for that moment, however long you need to appreciate it, and take that in and acknowledge your accomplishment, but don't bask in it. Yes, you gotta progress. You gotta go look for the next task to justify that task, to justify how far you've come in that moment, and recognizing I have more to do.
Yeah, for me, especially with jiu-jitsu tournaments, mind you, I've only done 2 of them now. But my favorite moment of the entire tournament, regardless of my performance, is the class after. It's the very first time back on the mats at my home gym, with all my buddies on the mats. That's it for me. That's where I get the most contentment, is that, I went out, I took everything I've learned here and all the stuff going on in my life, and I measured it, and now I'm back and I have such a clear mindset of what I need to work on. You know what I mean? After my first tournament, it was, everything needs to be worked on. No, for me, is how to control mount. Is when I get a mount, how to really shut a guy down. Mm-hmm. Because I had an exhibition match against a 300-pound guy who I was like, I got mount, and I was like, I don't know what to do now. And I got mount for like 4 minutes and 30 seconds in one match and couldn't submit the guy because I didn't have enough comfortability with it. Mm-hmm. Coming out of my second tournament, first time on the mats, I was like, deep half, I need a bottom game. I don't have one at all. And if I end up on the bottom, I just curl up in a ball and hope for the best, which you're very well aware of.
You have a wicked top game, and you've been playing from the bottom, at least, 2 months ago when we were training together. Yeah. It's great. It's fucking great. It's been 2 months. But,
yeah, I try not to.
But
think about
yeah,
it.
I know, right? But no, I mean, you willingly play from the bottom, so you have the intention of improving where you need to work on the most, right? Yeah. Like the last few times we've rolled, I remember, just like you said, you've been playing deep half guard, you've been playing butterfly guard, you've been starting from the bottom. And that's important, is recognizing where you need to work on, and going from there. So you're on the right path, man, for sure.
For me, when I first started, and for quite like a couple months after, it was, I really wanted a blue belt, because that was like, getting a white belt is the most important belt. And Henner Gracie and all those guys talk about it a lot, about not Henner, who? Hodger? I don't know. One of the Gracies. Sorry to whoever, I'm forgetting your name.
There's a lot of them.
A lot of them, and I'm so bad with names already. But the white belt's the most important belt, because that's, like, if you look at the percentages, how many people get white belts to how many people get black belts, and you compare it to how many people never get a white belt to how many people get white belts. White belts are rarer than black belts in totals. Oh, obviously, not in actual per capita of the planet, but it's harder to get a white belt. Less people step in the gym than go from white belt to black belt.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
There are far more people who actually pursue a martial art. Yeah. Most people, it's I need to get in shape before I can. It's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. The martial art will get you in shape. That's the whole point.
Just don't get on the mats.
Like, I'm not a fighter. Yeah. You're not a fighter because you don't know how to fight.
Yeah. You're not a fighter because you've never had to, and you don't know how. And there's no guarantee that you will never have to. So you might as well know how. The IDF have a statement, or like a saying, that's the Israeli Defense Force, that if you can't be safe, be deadly. And regardless of what you think about Israel, it's just that statement is one of those ones that sucks to have as a necessity as a human, but it's also rings completely true. You know what I mean?
It's just kind of how you started off the podcast with. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener at war.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
But no, for me, I got caught in that. I just want a blue belt. Do I love it? When Scott gave me my first stripe, I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, I'm really doing jiu-jitsu. But what I realized is there's always going to be another stripe. There's always going to be another belt. Like, I didn't start jiu-jitsu at a point in my life where it's physically possible for me. Medical science hopefully will just turn me into a 25-year-old again, and I'll live forever. But if that doesn't happen, I'll never get, to the like the highest ever achieved level in jiu-jitsu. So there will always be a next step for me.
Yeah.
And I was really sacrificing enjoying the class that I was in for what's going to get me to the next belt. And I had that moment where I was like, why am I doing jiu-jitsu? I'm doing jiu-jitsu because I idolize people like Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink and these guys, and they all do jiu-jitsu, so I should probably do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I started. But why do I do it for me now? Like, what gets me up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready to get to class at 5:30? And it's a combination of social time, and I get to play in a realm where violence is not only acceptable, it's encouraged. And I get to go to a place in a safe way that very few people in history have willingly gone to. And I get to go there. I get to share that foxhole with a bunch of people that I really like, so it's, for me, I fell in love with the classes. I fell in love with, I get to roll with Brad today. I get to Matt dodge Anton today. I'm absolutely kidding.
I can't Matt dodge me today, bro.
No, not possible. It's mind-blowing who I thought I was and now who I feel like I am. I really, no, again, not to make this entire podcast about jiu-jitsu, but go try jiu-jitsu.
Definitely do jiu-jitsu, I think.
Or something. Like, everyone says or something. I'm like, fuck that. No, go do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's that vehicle for self-improvement. It's that ability to put yourself in uncomfortable positions where you are tested and you may not win, you may not succeed. And willingly going into that kind of abyss is really important for self-development, because you learn more about who you are. And that's the beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, is whether you're winning or you're losing, you're always learning.
Yeah.
And everybody should pursue something that you will never be the best at.
Yeah.
Because even the best of the best in jiu-jitsu, the best no-gi grappler right now is Gordon Ryan, obviously. Yeah. He's lost to Felipe Pena. Felipe Pena. I'm sorry.
I can't pronounce names.
He's another top dog. Gordon has lost to him both times that they've competed. Or two of the times they've competed. So it just goes to show that, like, even if you are the best, you're still not the best.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about pursuing something like that, is it becomes less about the accomplishment and it becomes about growth.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, the accomplishments are the plus. Those are the recognition, or little, like, points of recognition that you have progressed, going from losing a tournament and then winning your next one. Obviously you learned something, and that's all that belts and medals and wins is just a recognition of how far you've come.
Yeah.
But I think anybody who's been in a fight or in a competition will say that you learn more from your losses than you do your wins.
Oh, without a doubt.
Mm-hmm. But you still learn from your wins too. You learn what works. You learn what it's all worth. When you feel that W and you get your hand raised, there's very few things in life.
How fast is your heart rate when you're sitting on deck to go on the mats in a jiu-jitsu tournament? See, I got this theory that you're like Maverick from Top Gun. You're just cool. You're just like,
guilty. I've never watched Top Gun.
Oh, dude, I'll forgive you this time. But
I'll probably watch it because I know the next one's coming out.
Oh, don't even get me started. I can quote that entire movie. I grew up watching that movie.
Yeah. I'm definitely a fan of Tom Cruise, so I'm
yeah.
That. But what I'm thinking on the mat,
like right before you're ready to go on, they've just bowed. Your opponent's on the other side of the judges' table. You bow.
I'm just stepping onto the mat. I had from 17 till 2016 when I kind of stopped competing in Muay Thai. I've been competing on a semi-professional to professional level in kickboxing before I pursued MMA, before I pursued jiu-jitsu. And for me, for me, something about pain being inflicted or damage or the risk of being knocked out, it's far more scary than jiu-jitsu for me personally.
Dude, you're not wrong.
So I have over 40 Muay Thai and kickboxing fights in total. That's not including in-houses too. So if I include in-houses, probably more. Those moments of going up and it's just you and your opponent, and there's a whole crowd there to see that fight at that moment. This man's coming to knock you out, to inflict damage, to cut you, to knee you. I found that having that experience in competition before going into jiu-jitsu, because I competed in Muay Thai well before I started doing jiu-jitsu, getting on the mats, and the worst thing I have to worry about is tapping out or getting mounted for 5 minutes, is honestly, that's not as bad as getting elbowed in the head, getting your nose broken in the second round and having to go the last few rounds. Jesus. Things like that. So for me, for when I fight Muay Thai or I fight MMA, those moments before I go into the ring or into the cage, absolutely terrified. There's so much anxiety, especially leading up to the week. I overthink everything, and it's not necessarily about pain or being hurt. It's more about being embarrassed or losing in front of my friends, my family, my coaches. Everybody helped me get there. That's what's going through my mind. So for me, I kind of built that anxiety around Muay Thai and MMA. Like that was just part of it. Yeah. And then going into jiu-jitsu, where I feel there are far less consequences, because in MMA, all the consequences of jiu-jitsu plus all the consequences of Muay Thai into one. So going from Muay Thai then to MMA, which is far, far more scary than Muay Thai, and then going from MMA to jiu-jitsu, for me, stepping on the mats is easy. I have no, honestly, and that's not me, this isn't me talking shit. Stepping on the mats to compete in jiu-jitsu, I feel absolutely no anxiety. Yeah. I feel anxious because I want to go. I want to make that contact. I want to make those grips. I want to go for that takedown. I'm anxious to start, but there's no fear. My heart rate is probably at a
55
something. Yeah, whatever my resting heart rate is.
Yeah.
It's just a little different going from Muay Thai and MMA.
It's the level of exposure, you know what I mean?
But I'm nervous for sure. I'm nervous at any kind of competition. I'm nervous. Jiu-jitsu too. There's the anxiety of just, again, performing and representing the academy and representing my coaches and my friends and my training partners.
That's what gets to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's for most people. If you're afraid to get hurt, or you're afraid to get submitted, or you're afraid to get punched out, you shouldn't fight. Being afraid of losing, that's okay. That comes with caring. If you care about winning, you're not going to want to lose.
Yeah, I have mass all over me right now, patches all over me. It's not just me who loses if I lose.
Mm-hmm. Can I go to the bathroom really quick?
Yeah, of course, dude. Yeah, no worries.
Here we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, don't worry, man. It's been an hour and a half of
nice
nonstop.
It was we were just touching on fear before competition. One thing I have noticed, and after years of competing, I finally came to this place which works for me, and everybody deals with anxiety differently, whether they're stepping on the mats or going to the cage or the ring or field or whatever your sport is. Something that worked for me, and I've kind of learned to hone, was kind of just embracing the anxiety, embracing everything. If you see me before the mats, or if you see me like on the sidelines getting ready, or in the back room warming up, there's a moment where I'll have my headphones on and I'll just start dancing, start moving, shadow boxing, just flowing, just taking in all the emotions that I feel. I'm as opposed to trying to hide from those thoughts of like, oh, what if I lose, or what if this happens? Oh, he's good at this. Am I gonna be able to do this? All these people will try to push those away, push those thoughts away, but they're always going to be in the back of your mind. They're going to be eating at you, even if it's subtly. So as opposed to putting energy into trying to distract yourself, get rid of the distractions, get rid of that anxiety, get rid of those negative thoughts in your head. I just think about it. Think about all the worst case scenarios. Thinking, what am I worried about? Am I worried about getting knocked out in front of my mom? Yeah, I'm worried about getting knocked out in front of my mom. That would suck. You know why it would suck? Because then my mom's gonna be the one waking me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't
screaming
need that.
and tearing and like, what the fuck?
You know, or disappointing everybody. Yeah, those things terrify me. Losing and you know, not honoring everyone who's helped me get here.
Yeah.
So I've learned to just take those moments before the fight to sit down and just digest all that anxiety, all my worries. And then once you're just comfortable with that feeling, it's not a distraction anymore. It's just part of the background noise. So that's what I've learned to do, is just to embrace it. Well, I'm feeling anxious. Well, what's that thought? What's that negative thought? Am I worried about getting choked out? Yeah, you can get choked out right now. He's got a good rear naked choke. That is very possible.
Yeah.
Is that going to stop you from getting in and doing your thing? No. So as opposed to letting it affect you while you're doing your thing, embrace it now, get comfortable with it now, so that it doesn't bite you in the face when he's in that position, or when you're in a negative position. The last thing you want are all those doubts coming into your mind when it is a struggle.
Yeah.
Because it's not always going to be a clean, I'm going to take him down and choke him out, or I'm going to knock him out. It's just like that. Sometimes there's going to be a struggle. It's a fight. So being comfortable with all those emotions and everything that's going through your head before going into the ring or into the cage or onto the mat, I think that's really important.
Big time. When does the fear gone? Do you have a moment between when the fight is over and when you're warming up? Is there a moment where the fear just vanishes?
For me, when it comes to MMA or Muay Thai, where you know they call you out to the ring and there's that moment, it's when they start playing my music. Once I start hearing my walkout tunes and I'm making the walk, and I take time. I make them wait. I always make them wait. I take my time. I wait till a certain verse or hook kicks into the song before I even walk out. And when I walk, I walk slowly. I dance the whole way to the ring or to the cage. I have my rituals before I enter the ring, certain things that I do. But once I start making that walk, the anxiety slowly starts to dissipate. And then once I get into the cage or the ring, I'm untouchable. There's nothing scares me. Anything can happen. And then it's just about doing your job.
Executing skills.
And with jiu-jitsu, same thing. It's just that those moments on the sidelines before stepping onto the mats, just dealing with that emotion. But the minute I get onto the mats and you know I bow and I shake my opponent's hand, the anxiety is gone. It's not about what if, because the if is happening right now.
Yeah.
You know, what's happening and what could happen is happening right now. So there's no time to be scared, because now you're just doing.
Yeah.
The fear comes from the unknown. Fear doesn't exist. Fear is a choice to be afraid of something, because it's of something that hasn't happened yet. You can't be afraid of being bit by a lion when you got bit by the lion.
Yeah, when the lion's on your leg,
it already happened.
There's no fear of it. It's happening.
It's happening, right? So dealing with the what ifs beforehand, and then once you get in the ring, the what ifs are gone, because now you're in your zone. Yeah, at least for me.
No, I'm near that 100%. Like in a jiu-jitsu tournament, when I'm sitting off to the side, I'm pretty scared. It's not the most scared I've ever been. Done a lot of rock climbing in my life, and I had a really bad fall and spent like 6 months almost unable to climb because of the fear.
Yeah.
I
can imagine.
I didn't hit the ground. I was lead climbing, so you're climbing like above your piece of protection, and you're bringing the rope up with you, and you're bringing gear up with you, and you're putting it in the wall. And I was strung out, so like if you have 10 feet of rope out and you fall that 10 feet of slack, and then you fall 10 feet below. So that's what happened. There was a big gap between these two pieces of protection, and I was way below it, and I was pulling a lot of extra slack into the rope to the point where I couldn't reach, put the rope in my mouth, pulled more, clipped that in, but I didn't get the clip. I blew out, my finger gave in, and then I was like, whoa, and the rope caught me. Shout out to Blake Gaines for saving my life multiple times. No, so that for me, overcoming that fear stopped being a factor of my ability to execute for the most part. fear in climbing still gets me because there's many moments where you're paused. You're not doing anymore. You're taking a minute to shake out a hand, and then you're re-gripping, and then you're shifting and you're changing hands again, and you're pausing and you're really actively thinking about the next move, and the fear can find its way in.
Yeah.
But for me, I mirror your statements about jiu-jitsu. Again, complete paradigm difference of level of experience in combat sports. But for me, the second I make grips, it's all gone. Every feeling is gone, other than a stupid apparent smile on my face. My first match in my first tournament ever. The dude had me inside control. No, he didn't quite have me inside control. What happened? I just went full wrestler, grabbed around him, picked him up, slammed him into the mats, and was like, "Oh, did I just get a penalty?" And then he didn't quite sweep me. I kind of like pulled bottom half. And so he was like, he had an underhook, and he was top pressuring me. Basically, this dude is trying to squish me. I look over, and I see Scott looking me directly in the eyes, and I just look at him, and I'm like, because the fear was so gone, and I just wanted him to know I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not scared or hurt. I just wanted him to be sure, and he just goes, "Fuck."
Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with you? And then I was like, okay, let's do this. And then, for me, for the first 20 seconds of my first time on the mat, I forgot jiu-jitsu. I just grabbed and pulled as hard as I could with every limb and just squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And then 30 seconds in, I was like, oh, wait, you know what to do here. Hit the sweep, took control. He re-guarded and put me in a triangle. And I was like, good luck. You're going to have to knock my ass out because I'm up 7 points to nothing. Mm-hmm. And you have me in a triangle, but you don't understand the gym I come from. So good luck.
Yeah.
And then I waited for a minute and 30 seconds while he tried to knock me unconscious. And I was like, la, 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 la. And the ref's like down on his knees, like looking in my eyes. He's like, oh shit. And I'm like, I'm good. And then the dude just had to give up. And mind you, the guy was a sweetheart. I actually know someone who trains with him. I know someone from his gym. She works in the mall with me. But he was not happy. Because he definitely outskilled me in jiu-jitsu. But I'm just a big old cuddly bear. Is hard to choke for some, not for present company.
Well, you won the fight, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing. When it's maybe skill wise, competition wise, there could be that advantage on one end, but it's still a fight.
Grit and heart.
Somebody's got to want it more.
Yeah, if I'm up on points and you have a choke, this is gonna be a fight. That's what we both signed up for.
Yeah, definitely.
No, and I fell in love with competition at that point. I fell in love with jiu-jitsu basically right away. I first started training jiu-jitsu at Jocelyn's in Hamilton, actually.
Yeah. Jocelyn's. Yeah. I know a few people from there. Did I fight anybody from there? No, I was supposed to fight Nigel Crosswell. He's an MMA fighter. He fights at 135 actually. We were supposed to fight, and then amateur MMA got canceled, so we never ended up fighting. Yeah. But they have some really good fighters at Jocelyn's. I don't know if he trains there or he goes and spars there, but he has connections with Jocelyn's. Yeah. Another fighter I was supposed to fight was what's his name? I'm bad with the names.
Yo, same.
And but anyways, a really good gym. When you start competing at a high level, you only fight some of the best guys in our area, right? So I didn't get to fight anybody from that gym, but there were a few people. And yeah, Jocelyn, I got nothing but good things to say about Jocelyn's.
I loved it there. I had a lot of fun. It's where I got that blue gi, and I got my wipeout there, and then I it's funny how I was at I had just gotten back from Thailand. I was at my gym, and I'm super lucky. My gym has full sized, like, proper bags for kicking, like proper heavy bags, full length heavy bags. So I was just blasting kicks on, and this guy mentioned Mass. He's like, you should go train at Mass. And so I looked it up, and then, Crew Chris started talking about the traditions while just being an absolute savage. And I just fell in love. I was like, yep.
Mass is, it's been my home since I was 16 or 17. I trained at Fadey's Muay Thai, which is where Crew Chris is one of Crew Chris's instructors. He's had many instructors over the years. He's traveled the world and trained with the best of the best, but in our area he trained with the Fadeys, so Khan Fadey, Yit Fadey, Rock Fadey, Lam Fady, like all the brothers they're all from Thailand, and they all fought professionally and have hundreds of fights between them. So that's one of the people who Chris learned from in the beginning before he went on his own and opened mass. But I went and trained at Fady's. At first, it was just the first gym I found,
Yeah.
And I went there. It definitely got my feet wet. I had one like exhibition boxing match, but I realized, that I needed more. I needed more attention, more coaches. Again, not talking shit against the Fadys or Khan or anything like that. I love that family. Like Josh Fady is one of my best friends. You know what I mean? But and one of our training partners.
Yep.
Who he'll be here later today.
Yep.
But yeah, I just needed a little bit more than what Khan could offer. And I met Crew Chris. I remember I walked into the gym and he was just behind the desk with our boxing coach Elroy. And I was just like super like, again, I was coming from a place where I wanted to learn how to fight just from the anxiety of getting like picked on and beat up, and I was just tired of that, and I wanted to just be able to fight. I wanted to be able to protect myself. And then getting my feet wet in Muay Thai or boxing with Khan, it kind of made me realize I want to compete as well. And then I went to Chris, and I remember just feeling so humble and like almost like, is it okay I come train here? And I kind of went to him like, hey, my name's Anton. I was wondering if I could maybe train here. I have a little bit of experience. And Chris was like, sure, okay, go hit the bag. And then from there on, that was it. That was it. I did a boxing class there, and then I started training Muay Thai. I would do the sporadic jiu-jitsu class here and there. If I had trained as much jiu-jitsu as I did Muay Thai, I'm sure I would have been a brown or a black belt by now. But the thing about Crew Chris is he's so passionate about Muay Thai and kickboxing that it rubs off onto you. So originally going to mass, I wanted to just do MMA. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to be the next George St. Pierre. And then you meet Chris, and he just makes you fall in love with Muay Thai. So I changed directions, and I went straight into just Muay Thai and striking, and then I became proficient in that. And then maybe after years of kind of getting complacent and maybe I wouldn't say bored with Muay Thai, but like again 40 plus Muay Thai fights and training for those competitions got stale. I was like not as motivated, and that's when I started transitioning into MMA. I'm 1-1, and my one loss, I got armbarred, and this was after I had my blue belt. I got my blue belt, and I thought I was just king shit. Like, I'm indestructible. I'm indestructible. I got my blue belt. We're good. Yeah. And then I got tapped out by a purple belt, and and that just really showed me, you're like, there's levels to this shit. And that made me fall in love with jiu-jitsu even more, having it used against me. And that's often the case is people come to jiu-jitsu class and you have someone like Isabel fuck you up, who's a 118-pound girl. Yeah. And you're like, man, if this works against me, if this works for her, this will work for me. Right. So unfortunately having to learn through getting armbar, losing that MMA fight in front of all my friends, my family, my girlfriend, my coaches, it made me realize it made me realize I needed to focus more on jiu-jitsu, and that's where I've been. But again, with that being said, without mass, there's no me. Yeah.
For me, that's one thing I've really realized, weirdly enough, during the quarantine, is that I miss Muay Thai. Like when I first started training at mass, that's all I did. And I signed up for both, but all I did was 10 a.m. classes with Crew, and this big tall guy, Eddie. Not big, but tall. But I'm a psychopath. So, like, if I'm holding pads and it hurts, I'm like, okay. Like, 3 rolls in is when I hit my stride. So, if, like, I'm holding pads and someone's blasting on me and I'm all bruised up, like, that's when I'm like, more. That's it? That's all you got? Like, I only have a contusion on this leg. What about this leg? Stop being a bitch. So I just
Embrace
get, like...
the suck.
Oh, yeah. I just get into it. And then I started doing jiu-jitsu a bit more and got caught in that trap of I can be heavy and slow in jiu-jitsu and successful. But Muay Thai requires a different level of discipline. And I think at that point in my life, I was still very much looking for things as opposed to appreciating things. Mm-hmm. And having all this time to sit and been doing so much writing. I was talking to Jordan and George about it the other day. Like, man, I really miss Muay Thai classes. I really miss those moments. Cruz, like, not to gush, but he's really good at making you better. Like, just regardless, he's really good at making you better. And that's quickly.
Definitely.
He knows exactly what to say, and he doesn't explain it super articulate. And sometimes it almost looks like he feels like he's not being articulate enough. He feels like he's not being, but it's like 6 words from him is like 40 words from most of the other coaches. I've had 2 really good coaches. Mind you, one of them coached the Cuban Olympic boxing team, so it makes sense that he was a good coach.
Yeah.
Coach Sebastian, I don't know if he's still coaching, but he was a good guy. He cracked my orbital bone himself. Huh. Yeah. We were just sparring. But I'm a goat. You can't hurt me if you're my friend. You can just injure me.
Fair.
So we were just lining up and throwing bombs. I actually cut him open, and I think he needed the stitch. He let me hit him. There's no way I could ever catch him. But no, Chris is just, he's very much, if you're a warrior and you spend 15 minutes, like, if deep down inside there's that part of you that really has that uncomfortable love of violence, but you're also a good person, you know violence is wrong, but you also love it, and you're caught in that dichotomy. The second you spend...
Violence is human.
Yeah.
Fighting is human. Combat and war is human.
It's absolutely... It's something if you don't embrace it... Like, we're the apex predator of the planet. We're the most deadly creature that lives on this chunk of rock floating in space. Mm-hmm. If you don't accept, understand, and learn to discipline and control that part of yourself, you're just a time bomb, man.
It's true. You need to... people need to struggle. And... back in the day, we had those threats, whether it was when we're going to get our next meal, or what Viking army is coming over the ridge trying to impale us, or who's trying to take over our village. We had those external pressures and external struggles, famine, weather conditions. Weather conditions don't affect us, but back in the day, that was a life or death kind of thing. Yeah. So, we had those struggles, and now that we don't have those struggles anymore, or for the most people, aside from, people who go to war. At least in Western world, the world we live in. In the world we live in, we don't face those types of struggles. And that's why it's important to do things like jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or boxing or something combat related, because the struggle is your own well-being. It's not a struggle of, if you lose a baseball game, there's the ego of losing, but the fact that obviously it's a team sport and there's no physical consequence to your loss. Yeah. In an MMA fight, a physical consequence is a broken orbital bone or a broken arm or a dislocated jaw or a broken leg. I broke my leg. There's physical factors. And I think that physical struggle is something that people need to experience, which is why people should be exercising. They should be pushing themselves physically. Yeah. And combat's the most pure expression of that, because it's like, not only is it physically exhausting, it's physically injuring. Your bodily harm is on the table. That's a factor.
Raise the stakes.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's something that survival struggle is something that all living things need.
Yeah. We've artificially removed it. Yeah. But it's like, for me, I love anthropology, and me and my roommate Jesse dive into this. So we absolutely have to record another episode. But for me, when we developed, our frontal cortex and our ability to communicate emotionally before language, I think. Any anthropologist, feel free to correct me. But emotion, like our entire emotional mechanism and framework was designed at a time when there was cheetahs in every other bush. And if you weren't the guy looking for the cheetah, you died. Right. And to think that we can take that computer that's designed to run that software and plop it in to the excess that we live in now, and everything's just gonna be okay. It's like, you don't drive a 300-ton mine dump truck to work if you work 7 minutes away. Things are designed for things. And we're apex predators. We are not non-violent creatures. We need adversity. We're designed to handle it. We're designed to adapt. And when you stop doing that, it's hard to find contentment in life.
If you look at cats, for example, I have a cat, and I find that
I see your cat on Instagram all the time.
Shout out to Momo, Maurice. I call him Momo, but if he's not, I noticed that you see when he's not being exerted physically or being tested, he gets stir crazy, and he starts damaging things. He starts like play fighting a little more rough, because he's like he's pent up. Same thing with dogs. You leave a dog in a house and you don't walk it, you don't take care of it, you don't exert it physically. It's gonna fuck up your house. It's gonna eat your couch. It's gonna eat all your shoes. It's gonna, And humans are the exact same way. We're predators in the sense that, well, we're apex predators, obviously, but you see the humans that struggle, and everybody has struggles in their own way, and it's not necessarily just a lack of exercise or a lack of physical exertion, but a large percentage of people who might be maybe more violent or aggressive or anxious, a lot of them, maybe they're just because they're not being tested, they're not being pushed, they're not being challenged physically, and there's that pent up energy. Renzo Gracie said that the greatest thing a man can have in his soul is fighting, right? Yeah. Or everything, fighting is the greatest thing a man can have in his soul. That's the quote essentially. But and it's true. Like, it's in our soul. It's in our DNA to fight and to struggle and to overcome. So when we live in a Western society where everything is done for us and we don't have to overcome anything, that's when you're seeing issues that we have today, like these social issues, these problems that may seem kind of superficial.
Yeah, I'll be the one to dump in the political soup, but the victimhood mentality is definitely something that I have such animosity towards the victimhood mentality, because for a huge chunk of my life I was the victim. Split up parents, my dad and me are pretty estranged. For me that was my excuse to be shitty, and then once I stopped looking at the world that way, I'm not a victim. The only person I can, there are victims. There are people who don't have the capability to stop things they don't want from happening or injustice from happening. And for me, that puts double the onus on the people who do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, especially, I'm not dumb. I'm kind of smart. I'm physically active-ish.
As much as you can be in quarantine, I get it.
Yeah. But, I have a certain level of capability. And I think that pent-up energy in humans goes wrong is when people see this is their capability, this is what they've achieved, and they notice the gap. I'm holding my hands up. There's no cameras. There's that distance between what they're capable of, what they feel genuinely inside they could be doing. This is what I've achieved, and the distance between them. And what's really cool about martial arts is not only do you slowly every day train and get closer to what you can achieve, but you step on the mats with, for me, a guy like Jordan, who I am way bigger than him. He's taught me a lot of wrestling. There's some people I just get my hands around them and I slam them into the mats. And I no matter what I do, I can't get past Jordan's guard. Zero ability to do so.
No, he has a hard guard to pass.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so what I also get is the capability walking towards my ability. You get a far clearer, genuine picture of what you can do. And you also see constant development of yourself executing more skills and getting better. And Joe Rogan said it best. If you want to be happy, find shit you're not good at and get good at it. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as it's not as simple. And allow us folks a bit of room to be reductive here. Because nothing's black and white. Life is a complicated journey, no matter what. But if you can find it in yourself and, to help develop those skills to be willing to face adversity, artificially put yourself in the situation. When life, throws a hammer at you, it's not going to be as bad because you've had psychotic blue belts throwing, smaller mallets at you for weeks.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was Washington, George Washington. Might not be. I might be so off on this one, but he said a peaceful man is not a man who's incapable of violence. That's harmlessness. A peaceful man is a man who's capable of great violence and chooses not to.
Yeah, I don't know who made that. It might be Washington.
Peterson has a really close one too.
Okay, that's so true. It's so true.
No, that's yeah. Well, we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, and some gorillas are going to show up soon.
No kidding.
Anything you want to plug? I have no idea what kind of exposure you're going to get. But so your Instagram for your tattoo stuff, your shop.
Yeah, for sure.
Izzy's yoga.
is Isabel. That's my fiance. You can see here Isabel Lacroix. She was doing her yoga channel, but she's not doing that right now. She's focusing more on schoolwork, training, and everything in her own personal yoga journey. But you can follow her at Isabel Lacroix if you want to see any cool yoga and jiu-jitsu related videos. Myself, it's Anton Potocki, so it's ANTONPOTO. Yeah, ANTONPOTOCKI. That's my Instagram handle. That's my name on Facebook. That all I have is Instagram and Facebook. Yeah. I don't really do the Twitter thing, but
I don't even know how it works.
But yeah, if you want to see like my workouts, my training,
tattoo work,
my keeping up to date on the team competition, because if I'm out competing, everybody else is competing. I'm gonna keep everybody posted on what Mass is doing. But yeah, that's it. That's me, Anton Potocki, on Instagram and Facebook.
Sick, bro.
Cool.
Awesome.
And thanks for having me, man. I'm glad we finally did this. I can't wait to do the next one.
Oh, absolutely. We got a lot more to dive into. This was get the introductions out of the way. It was a 2-hour introduction.
Yeah. No, true. It's 2 hours flew by. I'm surprised how fast.
Dude, this couldn't have gone off better.
I'm glad. I wasn't sure. It's a new format for me. I'm usually just a listener, so it's cool being part of the process.
Yeah, no, I think everyone's got an awesome story to tell, and if you don't take the time, having an awesome story to tell and being an interesting person and being a great storyteller aren't always wrapped up in the same person. And if you don't have the patience and don't work on the ability to have a conversation, you're just missing it. You know what I mean? That person's got some cool shit. Go find it,
Yeah, definitely.
Cool,
man.
Well, take it easy.
Yeah, thanks, man.